Welcome to the fourth episode of the Indus Eagles Echoes Podcast, proudly presented by Indus International School, Hyderabad. I'm Sanyogita Bobba, and alongside me is Shreya Ramesh. Together, we'll be your hosts as we reconnect with our extraordinary alumni. In each episode of this podcast, we'll be exploring the journeys of our alumni, uncovering wisdom and experiences they've gained during and since their time at Indus. Today, we're thrilled to take a look at Avanish Meedimale's life after flight from Indus's graduating class of 2021. Currently, Avanish is pursuing his Master's of Science in Mathematics at the University College London. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's truly an honor to have you here. So, before we start with the questions, if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about yourself, please.
Yeah, no worries. So my name is Avanish Meedimale. From 2019 to 2021, I was studying in Indus. So I did my 11th grade and my 12th grade over there. And then after that, I studied at UCL for 3 years and completed my Bachelor's of Mathematics. That's just like pure mathematics. So that was like 2021 to 2024. In that time, I did two internships in between the summers. And then pretty much fresh after graduating, I joined I was applying for jobs, and that's what I'm currently working in now. For the past 9 months, I've been working as like a data analyst in London. So yeah, that's been my story until now.
Oh, so you're one of the only two people I know who are pursuing their major in mathematics, specifically aligned to data scientists. So it's very rare. I mean, I've not come across a lot of people. So what initially drew you to that focus as your major?
Yeah, uh, there's probably quite a bit to unpack here. I think one of the main misconceptions that people might have is that if someone picks maths, they're like a big maths whiz and they're really crazy about maths. And now there are definitely people like that, like especially in my degree, there's people who would like dream about maths and they would definitely love to go on and do maths for like the rest of their life. But for me, it was never like I started out in sixth grade or 11th grade and I was always just thinking like, oh, I want to do maths, maths, maths. uh, Actually, in like 11th grade, initially I wanted to do like physics. And then after doing my extended essay, I was like, chemistry is kind of interesting as well. But at the end, I chose maths for mainly one reason. And that's that I was kind of like early on in my life and I wanted to keep my options open. And compared to physics and chemistry, maths had the most soft skills, most transferable skills that I saw at the time. At that time when I made the decision to go to maths, it was kind of like scary because, I mean, not scary, but it did feel strange because it didn't feel applicable anywhere. People would be like, which industry are you going to use maths except like a math teacher. And especially like the content you see in maths, it's very, very academic. Like it's not very applicable. But after like working in my current job and my internships, I'm like really glad I did take math, and mainly for what I said, because of those transferable skills, the analytical skills. If I took like physics or chemistry, there would be a lot more skills I learned, which was like, I don't know, operating lab equipment or how flights work or something, which is only really good if you're like going into that field. So I mainly took maths because like analytical skills are just going to be like really, really good in general. And yeah, I don't really regret taking maths. Yeah.
So, for many students, I think what you said makes a lot of sense. For example, the only reason I went into economics is because I couldn't choose between pure finance or law, and that kind of gives me a bridge to both. So, for other students, now that you're actually working and you have specialized, do you have any advice in this journey? Because I feel that picking some subjects as a high schooler and then having to spend the rest of your life working with them, it's a very daunting decision.
hmm I would want to advise the students that whatever subject you take in university, it definitely doesn't have to stick for the rest of your career. I think in high school you take like 10 different subjects, and they're just trying to show you the foundations of every single thing. Like maths might give you analytical skills, and history or something might give you like research skills. So it's just building up all your foundational skills. And I see university as just you're picking the subject on what skill you want to specialize in. So if people are like taking law, maybe they want to improve like the thinking on their feet and just like analyzing every single, being meticulous, things like that. I don't think it's like if you take law, you have to be a lawyer. If you take economics, you have to go into finance or anything. I think uni is still just about the transferable skills. The main reason I say this is because university, I'm not really sure about like the economics degrees and all, but the university still feels like very disconnected from industry and from what companies do. Maths especially, if you think about like maths in high school, you're learning about calculus, things like integration and that kind of stuff. But if you look at maths in uni, it's not actually going above and beyond that. It's taking all like a big step back and going back to integration and everything, but building up from like first principles and being a lot more rigorous. So you're not going to learn like a lot more new techniques. Like you might learn a few, but you're going to learn a lot of repetitive techniques, and it's not going to be very industry applicable. Like, again, like I said, it's just mostly for building up skills. So yeah, I wouldn't get too attached saying like whatever you take in uni is what you're going to be in your career. The main thing I would say is like just be aware of what skills you're going to be taking up. Though also some of my answers they may be like specific to maths in particular. Maybe if you're going into like an economics investment banking job, then it's like compulsory that they want economics graduates or things. So I guess there is a bit of nuance into that. Maybe it's more applicable to maths. So yeah.
Every day I go on the news, I see something new in the field of data science. I recently read an article that says big data analytics in the food industry, or Google data analyst is crashing down. Something new is going on every day. It's a very rapidly evolving field. How do you stay up to date with all the things going on around you?
Oh, actually, yeah. There's actually a lot of interesting things to talk about here. When you're talking about a lot of innovative things and trendy things that are happening right now, then you do have to be very much like connected with the internet and conferences and what's going on, like webs and news articles. Um, and I want to say that it's if you're looking at a lot of like innovation and the new moving tech, then university courses and things they're going to be very outdated, I think. University courses they kind of like they're very old fashioned and they've been built like years and years ago, especially like data analytics courses. They're going to teach you like the foundations of like courses you would have seen years ago. Whereas if you look online, there's going to be so many YouTube videos, blogs, and like all the talk is going to be about totally different stuff. It's not going to be about using Python to run like machine learning models or anything. It's going to be about how you're leveraging LLMs like DeepSeek and GPT to do like crazy things that like automate fully business models. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to keep up with date to date. Is I don't know, like blogs, conferences, YouTube videos are good as well, newsletters. It's specific to the industry, but a lot of the cases, universities and like courses, they won't do a very good job at that. But for specific communities, would be decent. So, for example, if it's more academical, if, for example, like quantum research or something, then universities are definitely the place to be at the forefront of it all. But if it's more things to do with like industrial applications, then I think universities are going to be like way out of touch with that. So I guess it's like choosing between if it's trends and more like research and academia, then yeah, universities are definitely like the number one place to be. If it's more like trends in the markets and industries, than probably not really universities, more like conferences and stuff.
So, to talk more about your interest in data analytics and also your experience in that field, you told us that you worked as a data analyst intern at ISB, which is an incredible school. I know that so many students want to go there. So, can you tell us a bit more about how you landed this internship and how your time there was, and if school helped you in any way?
hmm Um, I'd say that the way that I got the internship was very simple. It was through connections. My parents knew someone there, so that's how I got the internship there. Ideally, I wanted to actually find an internship in UK or London and find one myself, but I heavily underestimated like how much you have to apply. I guess this is part of a different question, but I would really advise people to apply a lot, especially if you're like in competitive markets like UK and US. You might hear people like applying hundreds of applications for to get in somewhere, and it may seem excessive, but at least in London, it feels kind of average at this point. 100 applications, it's normal. And I think I took like very long to realize this. It's only after like 3 years of my university years that I realized like how much I have to apply and how much I have to prioritize like applying. I think I focused like too much on my coursework in uni and not enough on my career by like applying and getting college internships. But fortunately, it didn't matter too much because my parents helped me out there and they got me an internship at ISB, which was it was a great experience. I learned a lot of like more technical things. Uh, it was a lot more like free. They kind of like gave me liberty to do what I wanted. So it was I remember I actually didn't even have a task when I was got the internship at ISB. I had to kind of like dig into what other people were doing and then kind of like ask if I could help in this specific regard. And yeah, after someone did like give me an opportunity to do like some Jupyter notebook explorations of some like credit risk data. And that basically was like my first experience with like real business type of data. So yeah, then you had to be like really driven in that experience. Um, so yeah, that example, I didn't manage to get like any good applications myself. So after I did graduate, then I did apply for like a few hundred. And then what my current role is something that I managed to apply to myself without my parents' help. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many high school students think that once you get into a good university, maybe an Ivy League or a top 10, your life is set. You have to work hard in school, get into the university, and then your job applications are kind of laid out for you. Since you've already been through that, and we were talking about that recently, can you offer a bit more insight into that? Like, to what level is that actually true?
I can actually offer some like insider insight into that as well. Because at my current role, I've been into the shoes of an interviewer as well. I've interviewed around like 10 people, 10 new candidates, and I can tell that the way my company thinks, they always use university as like an initial screening step. Whenever they're trying to find people, they always look for good universities like Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, UCL. But once they get to the initial interview stage, then it's really about everything else that you've done. Like there's been in the current interviews I've done, there's been people from like Oxford who have performed like horribly in the interview despite having a really good university. And there's people from like University of Bath, which is still good, but like very comparatively not as good as Oxford. And but their resourcefulness, analytical skills, and their drive to like learn new type of stuff, that was like a big highlight. So university is really only like for that initial step into the job. But that doesn't mean like it's not important because there might be hundreds of like really, really good candidates, but they're just never seen because they're not at a good university. So I'd say that if you don't get a good university, it's not impossible, but you're gonna have to apply a lot more, and you're probably gonna need to leverage a lot more like networking and connections, and try and like get yourself in front of people. Because and the initial like what do you call it, first sight, people just like associate you with what university you are because they don't know anything about you. So when they see you, they just say, "Oh, you're a UCL student or you're an Oxford student." So at first glance, your university name holds a big position. But then the more and more people like see you, then it becomes less and less important over time. Though another aspect to think about it is your alumni network, because people really feel like some sort of attachment with people who went to their same university. So I guess if your university has a strong alumni network, then it's going to be really good for you on networking as well. But I don't think it would be too much of an issue. So yeah, a good uni definitely helps, and it's definitely not impossible to get a good job without a good uni, but having a good uni makes it like a lot easier when applying to jobs and stuff.
So, could you elaborate a little bit more on that last point? You said that obviously, when you go to a good university, which what UCL is, where you went, you get to leverage their resources more. In what way? In what aspect? How does it differ from a good university versus a mediocre one?
I can give an example. I think I was trying to research people who were kind of like in the forefront of like quantum technology and like startups so that I could learn more about that sector. And I managed to find someone who was on my UCL alumni network. So I just introduced myself as like a student from UCL who was interested in what he does. And I think he took a lot of attention to the fact that I was from UCL, and he was like, I would love to help someone who graduated from my same alumni matter. So I think there's that sort of like cohesiveness and that sort of like camaraderie from people within the same uni, even if they're in like different batches. So that is one of like the main way you could use resources. There are other type of resources, I guess you could say, like capital resources. For example, like laboratories and that type of stuff. But I can't really say much about it for maths because the only resources you have in the maths department is like a whiteboard and a blackboard and maybe a printer if you're lucky.
So, talking about university, how was your transition from Indus to university life? Were there any challenges that you faced or anything that you feel you should share to high school students?
hmm Yeah, I think for me specifically, I didn't have many issues when it came to the academics because I think I spent a lot of time in academics in high school and a lot of time in academics in college. But there was a really big kind of like challenge that I faced, and that came to like just friendships and social networks. In high school, you're forced to be together. Like you're in a class of 26 people, and that makes it like really, I think the way like my type of friendship or personality works, I need to like be with people for like quite a while before like I become close friends with them. So high school was kind of perfect for me because it forced us to be together. But in college, people make themselves seem a lot more busy. Like they'll come into the lectures, and as soon as the lecture's done, they'll go off somewhere, and you'll like never see them again. So in college, you have to like find a friend network which is much more related to your hobbies and your interests, is what I believe. Unlike high school, where you could just sit along with anyone and just enjoy their company, you need to like share common interests with friends in college, especially. And I guess that's where you leverage all like the societies and I don't know. I think I went to like board game society. I went to the gym. I met a few people there. I went to like a music band. So you got to use those type of different shared interests to meet people.
Kind of going on a side track over here. We looked at your resume, and it's really, really impressive. But one thing that really stood out to me personally was your project on the on RFECB. It sounds really, really fascinating. Do you think you could talk a little bit about it and how you came up with it?
Yeah, actually, so there was this community where I do my data science stuff. It's called Kaggle. And it's basically a resource where you can see more experienced people, more experienced data scientists showcase their work for free, basically. So I was just kind of like researching what they had in store. And I found out that everyone was using this technique, basically RFECV, but there was not really any like good explanation for it. And I think the best way to get reach is to reach people and share your knowledge is to find like some kind of niche where there's not much information already. And this is one specific area that I saw that I felt like not much information was being shared about RFECV. So that's why like I did my own explorations and my research on it. I reached out to some experts on Stack Exchange for some assistance. They helped quite a little bit over there as well. And then yeah, I shared it with the community, and it was basically something that not many other people, a lot of people use, but not many people were aware of like the underlying techniques. So I feel like I did a good job of explaining that. And yeah, I think I got like 40 upvotes. But yeah, the main idea of this is just like trying to identify a niche where there's a gap in knowledge, and that's how, I mean, it's like less competition basically. So that's how you get reach over there. That was my idea for the project.
So, for our final question of the evening, looking back at your high school years, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently? Anything that you could tell current students not to do, or even to do for that matter?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me think about this a bit. Yeah. So I think high school, it teaches you, oh, it like puts a lot of pressure on you to complete projects and complete assignments. And sometimes you kind of take shortcuts and submit shoddy work just to like improve your grade up. And, and I guess it's in better universities are recognized better for jobs. But from what I've like said in today's podcast, people undervalue like the amount of soft skills which are valued along with the university. So I think it's really, really important to just try and, even if you're trying to like take shortcuts, try and take them in ways that you're learning as much as you can. I think an interesting example to talk about, which would be topical, would probably be like GPTs. A lot of people in assignments, I guess they're using ChatGPT and stuff, which a lot of people are like complaining about, saying it reduces like the amount of thought you put into it. Um, Instead of just, I would suggest like using, if you want to adapt to like the future, then these are tools that you're gonna have to keep in your arsenal. So just try and master these tools more instead of trying to like cover up for them. So instead of trying to find things which change like GPT text to more human-like text, you can just make your GPT process even more advanced and rigorous. For example, instead of just typing your prompt into a GPT and then writing your essay based on that, you can use the GPT to create an entire like research workflow and um, I don't know, ask it to get several different sources, ask it to do, you basically you provided the idea, you provided the workflow, and then it does kind of the research. So essentially just upskilling yourself, but still taking a shortcut, I guess. But yeah, that would be my piece of advice. Just always emphasize upskilling yourself, um, not just the end result of the grades. Maybe I can ask you a few questions because it's more conversational. Um, so what degree are you two pursuing, or are you still deciding?
So I'm really interested in like economics. That's always been there since like ninth grade because I took AP microeconomics and I loved it so
Mm-hmm.
much. But in 10th and 11th, I can't decide between law and like pure finance investment banking. So I'm going into like economics and global politics. So I have like both options, but I'd say my degree, I'll go for like bachelor's of economics.
I think my sister also has done like some business with economics degree in US. So I think her reason for choosing that was just very like monetary though, to be honest.
But I do feel like economics, it's like very monetarily beneficial. And also, you don't have to stick to anything. You can do anything with an economics degree almost. So,
Yeah, the thing I like about economics is it is like in the forefront of like innovation as well. Like it's very dynamic. There's a lot of human elements. It's always going to change. So it's interesting in that regard, yeah. Yeah, how about you, Shreya?
I want to do
What do
biotechnology.
you
Yeah, I love bio and I love math. So putting them together, you get bioengineering or biotechnology. And I hate physics, so biotechnology.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess you can, yeah, I'd say either biotechnology, but you could also consider just the option of taking like maths with biology or just a pure maths itself as well, just because
I actually am looking into
again, just like the pure skills. I feel like a lot of skills, yeah,
that.
okay, that's interesting. Because especially when it comes to industry and that type of stuff, there are a lot of skills which can just be self-learned, and there's a lot of skills which will be self-learned because a lot of the things that they teach you at university aren't directly applicable to industry. I'm not really sure if this applies when it comes to like economics or biology, but yeah, I feel like there will be a lot of like self-learning on the job as well. So sometimes it's just better to like prioritize skills, skills, skills. I say this because there were a few of my maths modules that I took which were more like applied side, and I thought they would be like interesting and applicable to industry. One of them was biomathematics, but then it ended up being a lot of memorization, and it didn't seem for me, it didn't get me thinking, that module. It didn't seem to like improve my skills at all. So I'm just like cautious whenever, yeah, it comes to like education about applied subjects because it might have to do a lot with like memorization and not actually improving the skills.
So, with those final words, that wraps up our conversation with Avanish, a truly remarkable individual whose journey in mathematics and data analytics has been nothing short of inspiring. So, to our listeners out there, whether you're aspiring to enter the field, already on your way, or still exploring your options, I hope his experiences and stories have provided you with fresh insights, useful guidance, and the motivation to choose your ambitions. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Indus Eagles podcast.
thank you, Avanish.